Our next speaker hails from Minnesota, the Gopher State. After graduating in 1989 from Chadron State College, he worked as a teacher. He's also enlisted in the Nebraska National Guard from 1981 to 1996. He then served in the Minnesota National Guard, retiring in 2005 as a command sergeant major. He's been a member of Congress since 2007, representing the 1st District encompassing the southern portion of the state. He continues his membership on the House Veterans Affairs Committee, a committee assignment he has held since his first term in the House, and currently serves on the Oversight and Investigation Committee. The subcommittee provides oversight on programs and operations of the Department of Veterans Affairs, as well as those of other federal agencies that pertain to veterans. He's been an outspoken advocate of enhanced veterans benefits since his election to Congress, supporting the post-9/11 GI Bill and supporting legislation to support the study of traumatic brain injury and develop improved models for caring for victims of those injuries. In 2009, he gave the keynote address at the American Legion National Convention in Louisville, Kentucky. In his speech, he spoke about the need for the VA and Department of Defense to work together to make sure that returning servicemen and women do not fall through the cracks when they transition to civilian life. Ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished guests, please give a warm welcome to Representative Tim Walz of Minnesota's 1st District.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for the kind introduction. I always ask the question if you know the difference between a political introduction and a eulogy, and it's at the political introduction one person believes it. So thank you, Commander. I am grateful for that. To all the national staff and all of you commanders, welcome, and thank you for being here. Thank you for the invitation as a member of Congress, but more importantly, thank you as a fellow Legionnaire and citizen. Thank you for being the conscience of the nation. I often think, and I'm not telling you anything new, cynicism seems to dominate the news. Neighbor get angry with neighbor. There's very little trust in our institutions, whether it's the institution of Congress, institution of the media, institution of banking. But there's one institution they still believe in. They believe in our armed forces, and they believe those who stand with them, and that's critical. And as you heard, as a public school teacher, I think so often, and we're here today, and I think what dominates it, and it's right, the care of our warriors coming back should be a national priority, as we've made it, and this room understands that, and it's important to tell the rest of the country. It's not that my people in southern Minnesota, and I'm sure all of where you hail from in each of our states, people want us to get this right, but the fact of the matter is, with less than 10% of the population being veterans, and the fewest members of Congress being veterans, it's sometimes hard to get the point across of why it's so important. But it's not for lack of compassion, lack of care, or lack of wanting to do what's right. That's why we need you to be here and speak about it. But I said the Legion's mission extends far beyond that. As a teacher, I saw it, and I said one of the great things I saw is fostering youth through the Americanism and through Boys and Girls State. Those programs are absolutely critical for developing future leaders and for developing that continuity in our culture. The understanding of what came before matters of what's going on in the future, and you've been there every step of the way. And then things like the sports programs and the baseball programs, those are not nice to have things. Those are the fabrics of our community. Those are what holds us together. Those are the things in our culture that pass from generation to generation. When I watch my 9-year-old play Little League Baseball, that reminds me of what I did and when my dad played it, and that's what the Legion understands. It's about the continuity, the thread, and as I said, the conscience of our nation. So you being here is not just an exercise to go tell members of Congress what they need to do, which I hope you do, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I hope you're telling them, but it's more important that it's a reflection and it's a mirror on what the nation is, and for that I am eternally grateful that you're here, because I think about this and I often ask the questions when groups come to see me, what would happen if you're not here? Who would say these things? Who would do these things, and what would be the outcome of that? Because I sometimes think that people think things are just inevitable. that we will continue on and the democracy will continue on and the way we do things will continue on. It's not that simple. And I said, with that comes great privilege. Each generation has to renew that spirit of America. Each generation has to renew that commitment. And by you being here, this is our time. This is your time to do this. This is what we need to say. And I, for one, refuse to take the cynical outlook. I refuse to see cynicism as what drives this nation. Skepticism of government, of course, that's in our blood. That goes back to our founding. We will always be skeptical. Be healthily skeptical. If we tell you something's going to happen, your first thought should be, let's see if that really does happen. Let's see how that gets there. Or probably more importantly, what you do is we will help make sure you get there and we will remind you of what you said. That's a very important piece because I think today, and I heard the national commander, and I can't thank him enough, when he was in Minnesota, he echoed this. His visit to Minnesota had a profound impact talking about accountability. And the way this commander and the way the Legion talks about accountability is broad accountability. Everybody's got an opinion. It's that idea, and everybody can point out a problem. It's not that difficult. You see people, well, there's a fire. Well, if you see a fire, it's not that hard to say there's a fire. You know it's difficult? To be that well-trained, well-equipped, well-financed, and ready-to-go firefighter who's willing to put that fire out. That person needs to deliver the job. And I said with the Legion, and what you're asking for is, accountability is a lot more than lip service. If somebody's going to come up here and they're going to give you the speech and tell you how it's going to be, yes, it's important. I oftentimes say this. I know I'm preaching to the choir. The choir needs to sing loudly. The American public needs to hear the choir sing. But accountability is accountability of outcomes, accountability of results, accountability of moving things forward. So it's not just good enough for us to complain about what's not working, or for us to say that, this is not going the right way, or America needs to do this. Yes, leadership needs to point out things, but leadership is a collaboration of people who know. So when you come and when your commander speaks to Congress with the priorities of the Legion, that's not the priorities of the Legion, that's the priority of America. And that's what you're trying to lay out. And it's not just a suggestion, it's a way and a roadmap. And we understand there are other VSOs, there's other concerned folks that are trying to get there, and then it's our job. This is where politics doesn't need to be a pejorative. Our job is to find that common ground. If you say 10 and I say 8, perhaps 9 will work. But sometimes when it comes to veterans, we'll take nothing less than 10 because that's what we promised. We'll take nothing less than what it takes. And on that, I think the strength lies in, and I've always said this about this commitment, and you understand this clearly. The commitment to our veterans is a statement to our youth, and it's a statement to everyone else around the world what we value and how strongly we're going to stand. And if we ever waver, and whether our citizens, our young people, or those around the world think that we are not going to honor those who sacrifice, or they think we are not going to equip our military to take on the challenge of the future, that show of weakness will resonate. It will make a difference. And I think that's why it's important when we talk about and we move forward on accountability, let's be very clear what we're looking for. And I've heard the commander say this, and I've heard the Legion say this, especially dealing with our veterans. I think all of us, it breaks our heart. And again, that idea of we're not going to settle for less than 10, this is a zero-sum proposition. If one veteran falls through the crack, if one veteran waits too long for care, if one veteran is denied a benefit that they had, if one veteran sleeps on the street tonight in America, then I think our job is not done. And as I said, the privilege of living now, we may never get to that point, but I think setting the bar anywhere less than that sends the signal that it really doesn't matter and we'll settle for less. We won't settle for less. And when it comes to the VA, I've said this when I was in the military, when I was out, when I was a civilian, and now as a member of Congress. I will be the VA's staunchest supporter, but I will be their harshest critic when they need it. And that's what the Legion has said, that this is a system we're saving, but any system we're saving is a system worth reforming, a system worth moving towards quality care, a system moving towards better delivery. And I think in that accountability and this partnership, and I can tell you this, if your frustrations with Congress, I always say, if it wasn't so damn sad, and if people hadn't bled and died on the fields of battle to give us the right to self-govern, it might be funny when people say that our approval rating is between North Korea and head lice. But it's true. That is a true statistic. And I said, that is a reflection, and I take that very seriously. The way we conduct our business is a reflection on the sacrifice that gave us the right to self-govern. Because if we don't do this and we don't get it right, you tell me what the alternative is. It's not as if magically tomorrow a new system is going to be invented. Winston Churchill always said, this democracy is the worst form of government ever, except for every other one that's been tried. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to govern. Then he went one step further, and I don't know if this was the British in him or if this was an insightful comment. He said, you can always count on America to get it right after they try everything else first. And that, he may be right. We're a persistent bunch. We're stubborn. But the one thing is that's always brought us together is our common goals and our common support of that we're in this together. And I can tell you today, I think he probably spoke earlier, Johnny Isakson, Senator Blumenthal in the Senate, and Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller's the chairman of the VA committee. He's my chairman of the VA committee. He's more than that, he's a friend. I don't care that he's a Republican congressman from Florida and I'm a Democratic congressman from Minnesota. We're both Americans who care deeply about the care for our veterans, and we will find common ground to move that issue forward. That's what people expect. That's what they want. So for you and the message, I hope you understand. I think each of you know you've taken time out. You could be doing anything with your time and talents and your resources, but you chose to be here. You chose to be here because you know how important this is. You chose to be here because you haven't lost faith that you can make a difference. I had an interesting discussion. The Mayo Clinic's in my district, which I'll talk a little bit on healthcare reform, but last week the Mayo has a pretty unique patient who's there right now. It's the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is being treated. So I met with him last week, and I was talking about how do we make a difference? I said, sometimes it seems like, we're too small to make a difference. He said, oh, never too small to make a difference. Try sleeping with a mosquito. And I said, okay. That was very Dalai Lama-ish. And none of us here are small enough, but I said the Legion as a voice is loud. The Legion as a voice, as I said, that's respected. The Legion as a voice is what America wants to hear. And I said, when your commander makes accountability across the spectrum, from the VA to the military to how we do business in Congress, that makes a difference. And so I think when looking at the VA, and I talked about the Mayo Clinic is probably the world's premier healthcare institution. People at the Mayo Clinic will tell me this: if you want some of the best healthcare in the world, it's there or at the Minneapolis Polytrauma Center. Each of us in this room understand if the system is working right and you can get in, we have some of the most dedicated people working at the VA trying to provide quality care, many of them veterans themselves. I have a gentleman who I've gotten to know who's a cardiac surgeon, and he had a very lucrative private practice in Minnesota, and his son was deployed to Afghanistan where he was severely injured, and he went and got quality care. And this gentleman chose to leave the private sector now at the middle of his career. He is now working in the VA hospital because he said it's the right thing to do to give back because there were talented orthopedic surgeons there for his son. That's what America's about, and those people are out there. This is not a deficit of commitment from the country. This is not a deficit of quality people, whether it be food service personnel, to the world's best cardiac surgeons. They're in the VA and they're there. This is about a system that has started to be the system over what's there. And I oftentimes hear people say, when they ask the question of VA personnel, who do you work for? And they're always looking for this answer. If they say the VA, they get very nervous. If they say the veterans, then they know they're on the right track. And I think when it comes to reform, and you talk about this, the Mayo Clinic, their mantra is, what's best for the patient is what's best. And I think what we're trying to say, and when we look at reforms and we look at what's in these healthcare institutions, whether it be Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, whether it be Rocky Mountain or Kaiser Permanente, there are healthcare systems out there that are delivering accountability, that are delivering results, that are improving lives and doing it in a cost-effective manner. What we need to do is bring the best from those institutions and meld it with the best of the VA to provide a world-class, the best healthcare system in the world for those warriors that deserve nothing less. And that can be done. That can be done. And I think, again, I would thank all of you. The Legion understands that, and we're looking for it. And you should ask folks like me, and we're going to do it. Let's put out plans. Let's get the best minds on this, and then let's debate them. Let's not have empty rhetoric. Empty rhetoric that we're just going to send everybody into the private sector and they're going to get care. I'm telling you, people will tell you if you're in rural areas like I am, there's a shortage of physicians in rural areas. You're going to wait in the private sector too. And the situation of people saying, well, let's just create a new system where everybody's the same and the veterans are lumped in there. I am unwilling. When people say, well, why do we have a special health care system for the veterans? Because they're special. And that's going to be the answer. That is going to be the answer. We have to break away from those false dichotomies that tell us it's all or nothing, and the idiocy of the debates of the privatization versus the status quo. We're smart enough, we're talented enough, and there's enough people out there to create a VA for the 21st century, to create a VA that understands the needs of our World War II and Korean War veterans are different than our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, and they will be different from the coming. There is no one in this room that wishes and prays more because of the warriors who are in here that this nation never goes to war again. But it is irresponsible and wrong if we don't plan for the care of those warriors and plan for that instance if it happens. So I agree with the Legion. This is a system we're saving, but the accountability piece. And I want to be very clear when we talk about accountability and accountability of results. We want to make sure people get in a timely manner. We want to make sure they get the quality care that they deserve. We want to make sure that follow-up appointments are done, and we want to make sure we're protecting the taxpayer to the best of our ability. But I have to tell you this, nothing angers people more than a breach of trust. With all those thousands of employees who are doing good work every day, when there are those that are not, they need to be removed immediately. There needs to be accountability. And I think all of us in this room can understand, if there are barriers to giving people in charge the ability to do that, we need to look at those. And I, again, don't think it's an either-or proposition. People can have due process rights. People can have the ability to speak up. I don't want someone like I saw in Tomah, Wisconsin, where someone felt like if they whistleblowed, they would have no protection, they would have no ability to group together, they would have nobody there standing with them if they did that, and the administrator would have all of the power. We have to keep the balance of power so that people understand if they speak up and do the right thing, there are protections for them. There are legal protections for them to get there. That can be done. But again, and I will not hide my frustrations because I'm dealing with it, and this may be a sore spot with the VA, but I think all of us in this room know to come back and tell us something might have been, there may be letter of the law, but there's spirit of the law. And when the veteran loses confidence that people are being held accountable for egregious breaches of it's certainly the spirit of the law or ethical conduct, and nothing is done, it has a corrosive effect that makes them believe the entire system is corrupt, it makes them not want to walk through the door, and it undermines our ability to deliver the care they need. That's why accountability is so important. So today, when you ask the questions, ask those things. And right, you're going to hear this, and I agree with this. We cannot fire our way to a better healthcare system, but we can fire bad employees, and we should simultaneously be working on improving the system to make it better. It, again, is not an either-or proposition. We have to make it easier to hire people. If it's so difficult to fire, it's just as difficult to hire, and that's wrong. Of someone who believes that there is a role for government in our lives, I am certainly not going to defend a bureaucracy that holds up 9 months hiring a critical position to fill a doctor's position in a rural VA clinic to be able to deliver care. You cannot justify that, and everything in our power should be done to reduce that time. We can do that by following the law, by giving people equal opportunities to apply for that job, but dang it, if we're making barriers that we're not hiring physicians and veterans are waiting, then we're failing. And you need to today make sure that's not acceptable. That is not going to stand, and change the rules to make that possible. That can happen as soon as this week. We can put things, that's the beauty of it. It's your government. I have to respond to you. Every other member responds to you, and we can change it. We should not accept the status quo. So when it comes to the VA, yes, it's a system we're saving. Yes, there are thousands of dedicated employees out there. Yes, there are many, many things going right. But the faith and the trust of our nation's veterans must be restored in that, and that comes with your commander's words: accountability. Accountability for those who aren't doing it, accountability for improving the system, accountability to the veterans, and accountability to the taxpayers. And you should demand it be done now. This is not a 10-year proposition. This is now. Let's move the reforms. Let's get legislation going. Let's hire the right people. Let's fire the wrong people. And let's provide the care that was promised. It's as simple as that. And again, I know it's preaching to the choir, but I want to make the case on this. You've seen this. It's a dangerous world. And I go back again to my friend the Dalai Lama when he said, "I cannot imagine a world without America in it." And he said, America is bigger than a nation. America is an ideal. And he talked about this. He says, it's sure better for you to be the country that people want to come to than the people that flee to. And you can figure out how to do that. You can figure out how to make illegal people be able to do that. You can figure out these immigration issues. But he also said, it's a well-known, if America's not there, the dictators, the totalitarian, and the repression will reign. We've seen it. It's not going away. We all wish it. We wish that the world would do that, but wishing is not a plan. You have to prepare for things. And I'm telling you right now, your folks up here and the legislative staff has done a wonderful job. We're having a very critical discussion on the future of our armed forces. My passion is especially the future of the size of the Army and how we go about it. The world is dangerous. There are people that, to be quite honestly, and we can try and figure out why they're going to do what they're going to do, but I think sometimes they're going to do it no matter what. They're going to try and attempt to do this, and there is no middle ground when it comes to the defense of this nation. It is the first responsibility in this job that I hold, and I think for each and every one of you, it is our top priority. So I would encourage you now, where you're focusing on the accountability of the VA, focus on the accountability of how we deliver the smartest, broadest, deepest, and most secure way to defend this nation, at the same time protecting those liberties we have here. And I think that there's a real discussion right now on counting on technology to carry the day, and there's too many people in this room that understand. We love that technology, and we owe it to provide every one of our warriors the best possible technology when we send them into battle. But the key and the foundational piece from the beginning of this nation till today and into the future are those individual warriors that we send into battle. And we have decisions to make. We have budgets. There are limits to what we can do. But I, for one, have to tell you, and this may be the enlisted soldier and it's a big chip on my shoulder maybe on this, that whenever the Pentagon decides they want to save money, they come after the warriors. They come after retirement. They come after benefits. And trust me on this, I know we need a next generation fighter, but I've had more hearings on commissaries and reducing commissary privileges than I've had on the F-35. That's wrong. That is wrong on how we do that. We have a responsibility. I am part of the NDAA. I support what we're doing. I'm advocating, and I think we need a bigger land force in the Army, and we need to have a conversation on this. But I am unwilling to undermine anything we do for our warriors and that trust we have. And I think, and I thank the Legion for always being on guard on this. It may not seem like much, but every time we tweak the retirement for an enlisted troop, there's the belief that we don't believe in them. And they respond, and I tell them this, I think you should ask, because we just changed the retirement, and now people are asking, because I was speaking about it, now they're asking, oh, this might have an impact on retention. Really? You think we might have been able to forecast that a little bit? We might have been able to think about that? But I think it's fair to ask this, did we change our retirement? I don't believe so. I don't believe anyone talked about doing that. So the question is, maybe it is overly generous. I don't believe so, but if that's what your argument is going to be, at least have the common decency to tell those warriors, now we never tell them this, tell them we're trying to save money and we're going to change the system to save some money in the benefits we pay you. You know what? They're adults. They're willing to serve this nation in combat. They know and deserve for us to tell them exactly what we're doing. Don't do it in the middle of the night. Don't put bills together that people don't know. Don't try and hedge it that it's something else than that, because It may be valid. We may have a difficult time paying for that, but I think many of you in here are asking, if you're going to do that, you better have tried to find the savings every place else but there. But I'm telling you, I don't think it's just me, and I don't think it's just that chip on my shoulder. It seems time and time again, we come back to that. And I'm telling you, just like the VA, it's going to be the same thing with our young people. If they don't believe we're committed to them, what makes us think they're going to be committed to us? And this generation, this new greatest generation, has continued to sign up, has continued to defend this nation at a time of war in record numbers. That says something about this. It says much about it. So when you're up on the Hill today and you're talking accountability of the VA, talk about accountability of what we're doing for our warriors who are in uniform now. Talk about accountability, and I think all of you understand this, and we don't have time to talk about it, but it's there. Accountability on budgeting. Accountability on how we, as legislators, talk to one another. And the honesty which we talk to the American public. I'm listening to this now, and I don't care what your political ideology is on this, but to listen to a presidential campaign, I have no idea where we're going. I have no idea what's going. And I hear no one talk about specifics, because I've said this often. You will never find a politician who's not willing to stand in front of either the American Legion or troops. But you're not looking for that. You're looking for the politician who's willing to stand not just behind you, but with you. Shoulder to shoulder, talk about this, understand that differences are strengths, that we can build upon those, but our common goal is very clear. A responsibility to protect this nation and the freedoms that it stands for, to be that voice and that beacon in the world, to know what America stands for and not waver from it. And for those that are willing to put themselves on the line in an all-volunteer force and stand up and do what's asked of them by their civilian leadership to be sent anywhere in the world to fight fights that they didn't pick, they didn't decide, but their civilian leadership is deciding, then we darn sure better be delivering a quality health care, the benefits were promised, and we better talk in a way that our actions back up that we really do value them. Because if we don't, I have to be honest with you, all the rest of it will not matter. That is the key piece of this nation. It's that keeping faith with those who are deeply committed to it. And the Legion's mission is to be the conscience of the nation, to tell members up there, my colleagues care. But I have to tell you, in many cases, they just don't know. Many of them have never shopped at a commissary. Many of them are not counting on the benefit that they were going to get to be retired. Many of them do not have a son that's in Afghanistan or a daughter who's in Iraq. And that doesn't mean they don't care. It doesn't mean they're not committed. It simply means they need someone with the experience to tell them why this is important. So your mission here this weekend is absolutely critical. There are good people up there, Democrat and Republican, that care deeply about this country. It is possible to totally disagree on an issue and have zero gap between you on your love of this nation. And then at the end of the day, conducting yourselves in this job, delivering what the people are asking for, and keeping our promises makes us stronger. And so I, for one, when the Legion's in town, I sleep easy. I stand with you as a fellow Legionnaire in this commitment. I will do the best of my ability to move the things forward that we care about. And when we do that, we're only stronger. So may God bless each and every one of you. May God bless the American Legion, and may God bless this great country. Thank you.